Welcome back to Mowlem's Racing Travels. Later on we'll be visiting Estoril, but first let's take a brief look at Snetterson's GT Cup race where Bon Grimes and I had some fun with his Ferrari Challenge car.
Smiles all around. Congratulations, guys. What a way to finish your weekend.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's been a dream weekend for me. My first GT Cup and 2 class wins, a pole position and then an overall win. You couldn't write a better script for me. Fantastic.
Johnny, you went out there and caused some trouble at the end.
Yeah, I mean, Bon, to be fair, did all the heavy lifting there, and I just got in. And the only time it was a little bit tricky was overtaking the Lotus, which ironically is my Le Mans car with James Rossiter from like 5 years ago. So I wasn't used to looking at the back of my own car. That was strange, and he made it hard for me. But once I got past him, the Aston really kind of just gave it up. And then once I got in the lead, just push hard as I could, try and get as fast a lap as I could in, and bring it home for Bon. So I'm so delighted for Bon and FF Corsa and the whole team. They deserve it.
Well, fantastic. Congratulations, guys.
Great, thanks a lot.
The final round of the inaugural Michelin GT3 Cup. Johnny Mowlem racing here with Ivor Dunbar on a very wet Estoril track. Let's take a quick lap in practice.
So let me take you with me for an onboard lap around the famous former Grand Prix circuit of Estoril as we head down into turn 1 in top gear, touching about 160 miles an hour even in these wet conditions. As you can see, the conditions very, very slippery. First gear for here, the torque, even with the balance performance we've got with the turbo, very low, so I actually have to use first gear to get any punch at all off the corner. Normally through turn 2 I'd be third gear, I'm second gear here, and you can see again I'm taking a slightly wider line here, deliberately missing the apex to try and go round the outside, searching for that grip level on that wet weather outside line. And again here at turn 4 I'll do exactly the same. If you watch my hands you can actually see the level of understeer that I've got through the middle of this corner, and on the exit the traction, even with the sophisticated traction control system that this 488 Ferrari GT3 car's got, the rear scrabbling for grip on the exit. It's understeer in, oversteer out, sort of a driver's worst nightmare. Again, braking hard, the ABS here working very effectively, but still struggling to get the nose of the car into the corner. A lot of understeer, and on the exit again, little twitches of opposite lock as I come out of the corner, just scrabbling again for rear traction and grip. Heading down into turn 7, an outside line here, but so much understeer I was experiencing through here in the wet conditions. And again then leading the right-hander, the fast right-hander round into this very clumsy, slow uphill chicane. You can see some of the elevation change as I go uphill to the left, then to the right. A lot of understeer here. Watch the steering wheel, quick flick of opposite lock there just to stop the car from spinning. Back over to the right-hand side for turn 12. Leading this very critical corner because you don't want to end up too far over on the right hand side, which is incredibly difficult with the level of understeer I've got here in the wet. But this turn 13, incredibly critical corner, it leads out onto that long straight. I short shift in the middle, just trying to generate a little bit more front grip by doing that, and then onto the long straight heading back down into turn 1, and that is a lap of a very wet Estoril.
Yeah, super insight there. Now let's catch up with Ivor Dunbar and Johnny. Well, Ivor, when we talked in Portugal, in fact, before the start of the season, you said it was going to be a steep learning curve. Is that the way it's been?
It's certainly been that. And first quali in the wet in a GT3 car, so that was quite an experience.
The accent on the learning, though, what have you been learning with Johnny Mowlem coaching you?
Well, just about everything. I mean, you're using all the capability of the car, and the car's got so many different things to help you and hinder you. But the biggest thing is probably getting to grips with the downforce, and the fact that actually you've got a lot more downforce in this car, and it takes a while to feel the grip. In a 458, you've got more mechanical grip, and it's kind of quite easy to get your head around. These are a bit harder to get your head around, because when we first started driving it, it felt like I couldn't tell where the grip was. Now, I've got used to it, I actually feel it's quite a lot easier to drive than I thought it was before. But that's part of the learning curve, I guess.
Now, this Michelin GT Cup is, of course, a fully professional racing series, and that brings other demands as well, a lot more rules and so on.
A lot more rules, a lot more procedures, even just coming in and out of the pits, and all the expensive rules, and you sometimes break them inadvertently.
So what's the feeling as we come to the end of this season? You're up for more next year, maybe a different championship.
Yeah, definitely up for more, no question about it. I'd like it to be able to use more of the performance of the car. We've had the car quite reined in by the BOP in this championship, and another championship which gives us more use of the power capability of the car will, for me as an amateur, make it a lot easier to drive.
Johnny, your pupils worked really hard at this.
Oh, he's done fantastically all year. Where we started off, we've been monitoring Ivor's difference gap to me per kilometre, and every race we've done this year, he's got closer and closer and closer. And then in the wet conditions then, which reward finesse, he did superbly well, qualifying 8th in the second session, and was as high as 6th at one point. So really, really fantastic driving from Ivor.
And have you still got more to teach him?
We never stop learning. I mean, I never stop learning. There's things I discovered when I went out in the wet yesterday. I'd not driven this car properly in the wet before, and you're learning. And obviously in Ivor's case, he's on a much steeper learning curve. So every time he gets in the car, he'll learn something new. And like he rightly says, we're in a championship this year where the 488 Ferrari is the state-of-the-art GT3 car. Absolutely fantastic car, very reliant on downforce, and we haven't really got much in the way of power, so it's all about maintaining momentum through the corners. So for a driver like Ivor, as an amateur, it's very difficult to actually unlock that lap time when it's all about momentum and you haven't got the power. So if you make a mistake, you lose 4 or 5 tenths instead of just losing a tenth and a half.
Would you put it down as enjoyment, or is it too much like hard work?
No, it's not hard work. It is enjoyment, definitely. But you have to, commit, go testing and work at it. But definitely beats a day job, no question.
You got to race at Le Mans, of course, in the middle of the season, and that was probably a high point.
Yes, definitely. Anyway, 300,000 people there. It's an extraordinary place. You're there for several days. You get to soak up the whole atmosphere. You're behind the scenes everywhere with, on the main race and in our race. And then you're out there going around the legendary track. You don't get many laps on it, admittedly, because they're quite long, but great fun.
And you starred on Radio Le Mans even?
Apparently, yes. I appeared, anyway.
Well, guys, you've done a phenomenal job, and I think it's still a work in progress, though.
Yes, definitely. I mean, this was always, as Ivor and I have set up with Red River Sport, the mentoring and management company, this is always going to be a process, exactly that. And this was the first step for Ivor on that sort of road to Le Mans. And he's certainly exceeding expectations on that. And so we're going to keep going down that path, and in a few years' time, we're going to be there.
Well, there is the Amara Ferrari. Johnny Mowlem getting ready to go out, worrying a little bit about conditions, rain overhead. The team just thinking about the tyre situation. There's Anthony Cheshire, the team boss from FF Corsa, the Silverstone-based organisation. And off they go, rolling start here in the Michelin GT3 Cup. And a very quick start there from the white Porsche, driven by Klaus Bachler, factory Porsche driver, young Austrian. Johnny already looking to make up places in the black and white car, the latest Ferrari 488. Previous model also in this event, as is a very quick Aston Martin, and of course BOP all part of that. And there is Johnny right over the back of the Russians, that very quick AF Corsa run car of Shaitar and Basov, who are looking to win the championship here. Most of the drivers starting this race are the professionals. The amateurs will join the car, probably at the pit stop after just about an hour. Johnny, lots of close racing out there. You brought the car up to second place.
Yeah, it was great. The FF Corsa car ran really well. We gambled a little bit on leaving it on soft settings instead of going to full dry settings. The track was a little bit greasy in a couple of places, but it wasn't that nice through the corners, to be honest. A lot of roll, so couldn't quite utilise the performance of the downforce that the car's got. And obviously in a straight line we're a lot slower than the 458s, as you could see. So they could just pounce on me at the end of the straight. There's nothing I could do. There's no point in defending. I had to look after the tyres because Ivor's going to double stint, or is double stinting on my tyres. So I wanted to not take too much life out of them as well. So, but yeah, all in all, a good performance. And Ivor was running second for 2 or 3 laps after getting in, which is great for him. I want Ivor to have some good fun and get some good consistent lap times in. And it's all an experience and it's a learning curve. And he's continually moving forward, and that's what we can expect and hope for. And indeed, in the continuing tricky conditions, Ivor brought the car home safely. Well, that's about it for this latest edition of Mowlem's Racing Travels. Please join us again next year.